Hello and welcome back to the Answer Me channel. Today we're looking at graphing as part of our three-part series on algebra. So let's dig in. Graphing. Okay, so what is graphing? So we have a Cartesian plane. That's what this is called. Plane. And this flat line here, which isn't very flat, but I digress. So this flat line here is the x-axis. X-axis. While this one, let's just add arrows, while this one is the y-axis. So the y-axis goes up to down, and the x-axis goes to the side. But we'll see something that'll be a little bit confusing in a second about these lines. So we graph things along the x and the y-axis. So a point up here might be 2, 4. So this is the x value, and this is the y value. So this will be 4 here, and 2 here. So x-axis is a 2 value, y-axis is a 4 value. Great. So how can we graph things on this? So let's make another one, potentially straighter. There we go. Okay, so let's say we graph a straight line, such as this. And let's call this graph y equals mx plus b. So if we zoom in, there are two important lines, parts of this line that we need to talk about. We have the y-intercept, and we have the roots, or x-intercept. That's the shorthand for intercept. So this part here is the y-intercept. So what that means is that this part here is where the line crosses the y-axis. So this is the y-axis, and it crosses it here. In our equation, y equals mx plus b, the plus b represents the y-intercept. So let's write that down. So that is the y-intercept. Okay, so plus b is always going to be our y-intercept. Now, what is a root? A root is where the line crosses the x-axis. So that's our root. So if this is our x-axis, then it crosses the line there. That's our root. We can calculate the roots by making y equal to 0. So 0 equals mx plus b, and that will allow us to solve for the root. Now, why did I make y equal to 0? So if we look at this graph, the point where this line, the x-axis occurs, is exactly where y equals 0. Now, I think before we go any further, we should talk about numbering. So this point in the middle is 0, 0. This is called our origin. Then, in this direction, across the x-axis, we have positive numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and onwards. And then on the other side of the x-axis, we have negative numbers. So -1, -2, -3, -4, and onwards. Now, the exact same thing happens along the y-axis. So this is the y-axis. So it's positive in the upward direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and onwards, and negative in the downwards direction, -1, -2, -3, -4, and onwards. Now, I didn't draw it to scale here, but the gaps here have to be equal to the gaps here. So they have to all have the same gap. Then these have to have the same gap as these. Great. So you'll notice then, if we look back at our root, where the line crosses the x-axis is where y is equal to 0. So 0 equals mx plus b. We have substituted 0 into the y because that's the point at which we get the x-axis. Okay, let's try an example. So y equals 6x plus b, plus 6. So if we look at this graph, the y-intercept is going to be at 6. Y-intercept is at 6. Okay, so we already know that the line is going to pass that point. Now, let's also find the root. So to find the root, we make y 0 and keep the rest the same. So if we solve this using the laws we learned in the previous videos, that is -6 equals 6x, because -6 there, -6 there, divide by 6 here, and divide by 6 there, and we get -1 is equal to x. The reason is -1 is because -6 on 6 is equal to -1. If you want to understand why that's the case, I can certainly make a couple of videos on number lines and the properties of negative and positive numbers. Just let me know in the comments below if that's something that you guys would be looking for. So we know that it also passes -1. So we know that that's our root and that's our y-intercept. So this allows us to draw a line. If it was straight. Let me try that again. There we go. That's close enough. So the line passes through 6 and passes through -1 and goes on forever. So given this, we have been able to graph a line by using the y-intercept, which is 6, and by solving for the root. I hope this has helped. I'll see you next week. Don't forget to go to the Answer Me website to vote for next week's series of classes. If you're looking for more of this, go to the next video where I'll be looking at factorizing. See you then.